Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon. Good morning, wherever you're on our big, beautiful blue planet. It's been some time since I've done some live radio. Oh, it's been months between Hurricane Ida, pulling us up. I couldn't get in earlier than 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock at night. Thank God for Michelle and the host learning how to use StreamYard. And I just got back from Los Angeles Writers of the Future, which John worked the living hell out of me, that demon that he is. I'm talking about John Goodwin and Emily Goodwin. And y'all see some pictures later in the week and a lot of the archives, a lot of the interviews I've done down there with some of the judges like Echo. Echo Turner is a great judge. She's a lot of fun. She's an illustrated judge and she's a lot of fun. So is Tom Wood. They're both illustrators and they're both a lot of fun. And Tim Powers and all of them. There's a really bunch of great judges over there. I had a lot of fun talking to all of them. Had a lot of fun having dinner and eating with them and just hanging out and finding out who they really are. And what I mean by that is they give me carte blanche. I can do anything I want there. I can go talk to anybody I want anytime I want. As long as I can beat John from getting damn interview, I can get it on there. But anyway, guys, I'm going to say this and then we'll be showing up in just a second. But if you can, if you're an up and coming writer, or if you want to be a writer, or you think you're an illustrator with any talent, submit to Writers and Illustrators of the Future. Because if you win, they treat you really good. And it's a really good step in your career. It can help you move forward. I'm not going to say everybody. I did see, for some reason, it seems a little bit easier for the illustrators and the writers coming off the win. Both years I was asking several illustrators pick up jobs while I was there. Writers is a little bit harder, but still several writers are out there doing that. Well, hell, one of them, Kevin, won the award and then put a trilogy out. And it's got it published now. So it just shows what a little award can do to help you out. But it is blind judge, people. And trust me, I know this for a fact because I toured people up for a couple of years about, oh, you're full of shit. I don't believe it's real. Oh, man. We're going to talk to Sean because Sean's a winner from there. Not a recent one, but a winner, but still. They told me, oh, no, it's blind judge. Nope. It gets things, all the judges don't know what color you are, what sex you are, what nothing. I'm like, yeah, whatever. How do you get in there? You got to slip somebody $500,000 just to get your story in there, which none of that is true, by the way. But it all turned out to be very nice. I will tell you this: if you do win, they're going to work the living hell out of you. You're going to get to meet all kind of famous people and all kind of people who can change your career, but they're going to work the hell out of you. But anyway, we have Sean Patrick Hazlett. It's nice, Sean. How have you been, man?
I've been doing great. I
Staying
although
busy.
yes, as the world's been staying busy too. Like I think the last time, or I guess about a year ago or so, we talked about Weird World War III, which was
Yes.
that anthology that was about the U.S. versus the Soviet Union. What if they had fought a World War III? And it's like about a year and a half later,
They're
we're getting
trying
pretty
to.
close. Yeah, we're getting pretty close.
Well, we are. And now, what year did you win that Right to the Future? 30,
2017.
20. So what was that? 36? No, 35, huh? I'm just
Uh,
trying to think
th-
which book.
33, volume 33.
All right. I'm just making sure I got it. I buy and give away a lot of these books, and they send me a lot of them. I give a lot of them away, and I get them. Well, all the ones behind me are all autographs, so they're not getting given away, but still. People, I gotta go through a lot of work to get them damn autographs. Huh? It's like a nightmare in there when they do the book reveal, and I'm telling you what, this year wasn't that bad because they only had half as many. The year before last, they had winners for 2 years. Watching them sign the books was like comedy gold. We just log jams out. It was see people. Each one's got to sign their own story and their own artwork, so it gets kind of Some of the writers are faster than others. Obviously, some have better signatures than others. It's just hilariously funny. Not making fun, people. If y'all won, I'm all for everybody who won out there. But it was great. It was just if y'all can get out, you should go. John and Emily will take really good care of you, and everybody wants their services will treat you like gold. I mean, there's a woman named Joan who's like the whirlwind. If you've ever watched Dune, she is the whirlwind. I mean, this woman stops. I don't even, she doesn't even catch her breath. But everybody's good. I talked to everybody out there many times. I aggravated the hell out of a lot of them, walking around with a camera in their face, their phone in their face, microphone in their face. I'm not going to be rude when I want a pizza. I wanted to push them. I wanted to see if they get angry or if they get mad or if they say something other than that's my job. I mean, that's what I go from press, man. I mean, that's what I'm doing. But I mean, you met him all, Sean. What do you think, man? Before we get into what we're here to talk about tonight, what do you think? A crazy bunch of people over there.
Yeah, like they're all extremely hardworking, and they put together one of the best, if not the best, writing event every year, like writing awards ceremony. Even if you've
Uh,
been to like like Nebula Awards or Hugo Awards, they're nothing in comparison to the pageantry that they put together in kind of the L. Ron Hubbard's Writers of the Future contest awards. So I mean, hats off. It's really, I mean, you're in Hollywood. It's a real
yeah, it's a real
Hollywood
gala
event.
event. Yeah, they bring you out in the limos and drop you off and put you on the red carpet for 2 hours, and everybody and the mama presses out there, snapping pictures, talking to you, and then you get to go do the gala for 2 hours, and it's a good day. The only thing this year was that they turned the air conditioner off because they didn't want it being picked up in the taping. That's you got to do it in October next year if you're gonna do that again. But it's great, people. I mean, what gets me is how professional everybody is, because a lot of these first time winners, they've never really been exposed to this kind of television before, or this kind of audience. Standing on a live stage in front of people can be unnerving for a lot of people. But they all get up there and they give this acceptance speech, and they really hold it together. I'm surprised they make it all week with all the work they put up through, because it's nonstop for these people. It's like an intense training course, ladies and gentlemen. But if you get it, all the writers I talked to really, really enjoyed it. All the illustrators as well. They have some great illustrators, some great writers. And like I was telling him, there's a guy in New Orleans hiring 100 people right now in the gaming industry, looking to he's been gaming to New Orleans. So a lot of jobs at 100 people at $100,000 each to start. I imagine
Oh
some of them are
wow.
going to be programmers, but I guarantee a lot of them are going to be story writers and artists. So I would definitely check into it about worst job. So Sean, we talking about World War III last year. Now it's looking like we're in a picture where, you know, if the orange guy was still in office, I wouldn't be worrying about World War III. This probably wouldn't even be going on because he made Putin nervous for some reason. But this Biden guy, which I don't really hate or dislike, because he hasn't, other than driving gas prices, he's really not on my list that hard. It's
Right.
well, I mean, he's not the best with economy, but still, he's not the worst president we've ever had. He's not the best president we've ever had either. He does make me a little nervous because Putin and Xi Jinping don't seem to be scared of Biden. They seem to be scared of Trump. They don't seem to be scared of Biden. So I'm a little worried, because they may push it a little further with thinking Biden won't. And I don't know if he would or wouldn't. Yeah, it's hard to say. Would this guy go the extra mile? I mean, already it seems like he's the perfect one for you. So Poland wants to send them a bunch of their own planes, or a bunch of Russia's planes they wanted to send to. We said no, but yet we're going to send them a bunch of helicopters. What's the difference?
My understanding is the aircraft that they want to send. I think they're like MiG 29s or something like
Yeah,
that.
something like that. Yeah.
They're and again, I haven't looked too deeply into this, but they're much older Russian aircraft, and at the end of the day, they wouldn't. Not only would they not make much of a difference, but they would probably, um, you know, accelerate the loss of Ukrainian pilots. So the other issue too is like another question people might have is, well, why don't we just send them M1 Abrams tanks?
Mm,
Um, and again, there's nuances behind things like that, because M1 Abrams is a much more expensive tank than say a T-72. There, the parts would have to come from the U.S. We have to supply that, whereas for T-72s the parts are readily available everywhere in Eastern Europe. And then there's just the logistical footprint of an M1 Abrams is so much more complex and expensive. Because it drains like gallons to the mile, right? Like 1 mile, just to move 1 mile to consume, I don't know, something crazy like 25 gallons, right? So it's not like 25 miles per gallon; it's like 1 mile per 25 gallons or something like that. So you're dealing with this massive logistical footprint. So the way that you have to look at this fight is it's kind of the politics of good enough, the politics of getting the right equipment to the Ukrainians in as much mass as possible and in a way that they don't need a ton of training time to get up to speed. they can just use it right away. So javelins are perfect examples of that. The NLAW that the British have, another example of that. It sounds like the Switchblade, these kind of automated suicide drones, suicide bombing drones, are also fairly easy to configure and train people on. And what they do is, my understanding is, you send them up and they just loiter for a while until they find a target, and then they just dive on top of the target. So it would be ideal for this Donbass offensive that the Russians actually just started today. By the way, I think they started moving into the. I mean, they've been in the Donbass, but the last big push before May 9th, which is the Russian Victory Day, celebrating Germany. Like, that's the key day that Putin has to show some results. So he's going to kind of throw everything at the Ukrainians in the southeast, as soon as and as fast as possible. I think he has kind of three kind of operational objectives. The first is to subdue Mariupol. That, I think they've narrowed the Azov battalion down to, or cornered them at this steelworks plant, which it's a massive plant, but that's, they were yesterday, or a day to 2 days ago, the Russians gave them a surrender or die ultimatum, and the Ukrainians they obviously rejected the surrender. So that's ongoing. That's kind of the, once, or and if the Russians are able to subdue Mariupol, the secondary, or the next big phase is going to be focused on closing the salient at Severodonetsk. It's hard. I can't pronounce it properly. Which is the salient where there's a Ukrainian forces that the Russians are trying to encircle with a pincer movement in the east, in the kind of Donbass region. And then the third operational objective that he likely has is to seize Odessa. And the reason that he needs to, and that might be kind of a bonus, I don't know if he's going to be able to accomplish that aim, especially since the Ukrainians sank the Moskva, right, with their Neptune
missiles.
Embarrassing.
Yeah, no, that was just embarrassing, is what that was.
Yeah, but you know what? Like, the Ukrainians had the capability, and they pulled it off. So that's going to make things a bit harder in kind of getting to and seizing Odessa. But if Putin is able to capture that far, he ends up strategically denying the Ukrainians access to the Black Sea. And then, if he were to stop there, declare victory, and then go home, he wins. And the reason he wins is by cutting off the Ukrainian economy from the Black Sea. He can prevent, he can put a damper on their economy, weaken them, because that's typically where much of their grain shipments are sent out. And as you know, the Ukrainians have a huge, are huge suppliers of grain worldwide. So if he does that, then all he needs to do is just kind of declare a victory, negotiate a separate peace with the West to get sanctions done, and then he just bides his time. The fact that the Ukrainian economy would suffer would be an obvious impact of this, because of the denial of access to the Black Sea. And all he has to do is wait, and he can either wait until the current leadership, there's an election, and then he can kind of try to influence the election by cheating or doing whatever Russian dirty tricks he decides to do with the FSB, and bribing people, taking advantage of corruption, and then just gets a result that he likes, and then in the long run he can kind of either neutralize or control Ukraine. So that's where I think what his end game is. The thing about Putin is, what people are conflating is the utter incompetence of the Russian military with Putin's ability to be a strategist. And, at the end of the day, if I believe that my military was competent and I believe that my intelligence services were telling me or providing me with an accurate situation of what's going on in Ukraine, I would have done the exact same thing that Putin did, right? Which was aim for a decapitation strike of the Ukrainian regime. And the reason it failed was not because it was a bad strategy. The reason it failed is, the assumptions that Putin used to come up with that strategy were dead on arrival. And those, the two primary assumptions again were are what my people telling me true, is what my people are telling me true,
Obviously, it
and
wasn't.
and can my military pull this off? Which, I mean, look,
Yeah, I've been disappointed by the Russian military. I mean, first off, I remember the first 2 weeks. So you got a 40-mile long line of tanks. Now, if that would have been anybody but Ukraine, we'd have wiped them out. We'd have just two warthogs, and it would have been nothing left but a long line of destruction. And we wouldn't even try it. I mean, it wouldn't even be a big thing for us. So I'm thinking, I said, I know Putin watched us, one of the biggest armies in the world in less than 6 months in Iraq without any real effort. And I'm thinking, dude, what are you doing? You've got a lot of the same weaponry we do. What the hell is going on here? And, he got air superiority, in a week, right? Well, semi-air superiority because they keep shoving javelins up his butt. But other than that, he seems to have a sort of air superiority there. But he doesn't seem to know how to use it. He's got the whole entire Black Sea. He does seem to know how to use it. It's almost like he's scared to really push the Russian military. He's scared they're going to break down or if they're going to be seen as incompetent. Really, truly, I mean, you've got a 40-mile thing of tanks rolling around Kiev, and you can't even take Kiev. I'm thinking there's something wrong here. Now, we're on General 8 now, right? The butcher Syria we have now is what it's called. We're on General 8. I mean, how do you lose 7 generals in a war that ain't even a war? I don't know what to even think about that. I mean, the guy who used the cell phone, I'm thinking to myself, you're a general. You can't get through to Russia, to Moscow, so you pick up your cell phone knowing they're tracking these cell phones. You make a call, what do? They send a missile right to you. I'm thinking, really, dude? I mean, what kind of general were you again? It scares me to think that Russian military can be this incompetent. It's got to scare China, too, because China relies on them as the military to help keep the U.S. at bay. And right now, the U.S. is laughing its ass off going, dude, you'd be a fight for us. You'd have to use nukes, because without them, you wouldn't stand a chance. So, I mean, for China, it's got to be a little embarrassing, too. That's why they put all the nest eggs. It's just, I'm with you. I don't think Putin's been getting the whole truth. I think he did some things differently if he was getting one. He's got a pretty decent Air Force. I mean, he could shift a big chunk of his Air Force and just basically fly wing to wing across the country and start leveling. He hasn't done that. I mean, there's things that worry me, though, because if he gets in a bind, he may use something like mustard gas or a low yield, 2-kiloton nuke somewhere to end the war. Because I mean, he drops a 2-kiloton nuke, what's the Ukraine going to do? Surrender? I mean, what else choice do they have? I mean,
I think
probably surrender. But
I think in private discussions, like peer to peer between the American and Russian sides, I think the U.S. government has made it very clear. And again, this is just speculation on my part, but I think the U.S. has made it very clear that if the Russians overtly use chemical weapons or low yield tactical nuclear weapons, and it's obvious, right? Because the Russians can, are pretty shifty when in terms of their use with like Novichok was like a new thing that they used in the past that nobody had ever seen before. They'll provided that we can verify that they've used the chemical weapons. I think what we likely have told Putin's people in private is that if you use any of these weapons against the Ukrainians and we can prove it, we will enter the conflict and start destroying Russian combat power in Ukraine. And I think that's all we need to say, because based on what we've seen in the initial days of the conflict, I think we could probably accomplish that task within a month.
Oh yeah, I agree. we've got enough support in Europe right now that it wouldn't be. I mean, between us and our allies, I don't think it'd be a big deal to take most of Russia out of there and within a month. And I don't know if Russia would want to put any more troops or planes in because that's just losing. That's a losing battle for them. I mean, all they would be doing is expending materials that they couldn't make, so they would just be loot tanks. Oh, by the way, yes, Jeffrey, thank you for that. The Mi-17 helicopter is not going to be sent to the Ukraine for some reason. The Biden administration backed that off.
Really?
Yeah.
The Mi-17 is the HIP, right? Like the transport helicopter?
Yeah, it's basically it carries some light weaponry, some rockets on it, but nothing major. It's just I think it was like 17,000 pound cargo helicopter or something. He pulled out to send them. I don't know why. I understand why he didn't send the Soviet MiGs because for two reasons. I agree with Sean said earlier. They're kind of ancient and it would be easily shot. Even though for strikes, like when we were talking about those lined up tanks, it would have been a great piece of equipment. That's a little bit different. That's more of a direct attack on Russia. We're funding them with planes that can see helicopters and cargo planes that you can attach missiles to. We can't have if they stuck missiles on there. Not our fault. We're just sending them cargo. For some reason, he pulled that out. And I noticed a lot of the other package I see on this list here, a lot of this is World War II era crap. I mean, don't get me wrong. Things like houses, 150 millimeter houses will work against a lot of things. I mean, they'll rain hell on you all day long. But really, true, we don't really, our own military usually don't use weapons like that. Well, we have sophisticated drones and all kind of other little creepy weapons we got now. We've got robotic weapons. The United States is a whole different category than it was in its last two wars. So if you ever see us really deploy in a real force deployment, you see all kind of new weapons like you'll see. They'll probably, a matter of fact, thanks to Putin, we're getting the railguns back. We're taking the railguns off the Zimwalt destroyers because I think it's $1 million a round or something. Have you ever seen the original Zimwalt with her two railgun is a beast. So this thing's going through what is it? Bikini Atoll. It's got some old World War II airships left over from all the times we nuked them. They're all floating out there, right? This thing comes cruising on about 30 miles away, and just opens fire. It just basically just decapitates every ship out there. It's the top of. There's no way you're going to stop these things. They're going too fast, and they're too solid. You're not even going to shoot them down with missiles, or they're too small. Shooting down missiles and light armor is not going to hurt any. It's like cutting through the top of a ship with butter. So they decided to show you they had a frame for something they were building. I guess they decided to scrap. This thing shredded it like it was. I'm telling you, these guns alone get close to any navy. They don't even need any missiles, and you can see the Zimwalt. The Zimwalt is, I think, it identifies as a speedboat. That's how little it looks on radar. It's radar cross engine. So you're not even really going to know it's there until it's too late. And I'm telling you, you did not want to mess with this, and not including all the other weapons it has on board. But the destroyer with, I think, only 170 people. Put this in perspective, the World War II was usually somewhere around 2,500 to 5,000, depending on what kind of destroyer it was or battleship. I mean, the carriers today hold 5,500. Just to put it in perspective, this thing's sailing around with only. It's got all kind of systems on it that rebuild themselves, recreate work cells, repair themselves. This is definitely state of the art. It is definitely nobody wants to be tangling with this thing. I remember when Xi Jinping seen it the first time when anybody ever seen it in public. They had a picture of Xi Jinping, right? He's watching it on TV. You just see his eyes go, oh shit, what is this thing? Where did this thing come from? Immediately, he's out there talking about hypersonic missiles. And to help people understand what a hypersonic missile is, you do, people, in case y'all didn't know this, all ballistic missiles are hypersonic missiles, all of them. I just wanted y'all to understand that. It's not that we don't have them, we just have these little mini ones that they got, which, from what I understand, is not very far off. Cruise missiles at hypersonic speeds are just deadly. You can still shoot them down. The problem with this is they want you to think you can't shoot them down. Yeah, if you're like 10 miles, you're probably not going to shoot it down. But if you shoot just like we shoot a cruise missile, you have plenty of time to shoot it down. Just because it's traveling at 5,000 instead of 3,000 doesn't mean you can't shoot it down. You just got to be a little bit more accurate. I just don't like the hype. Yes, guys, just went in the Navy. I know all of this stuff. And it's not quite what everybody's making it out to be. But for a close range weapon, like up against a shore or close to a ship, it'd be deadly. There'd be no stopping it. It would already be. But the problem Russia has, like everything else, to date, since 2014, Russia has attempted to launch no less than 71 ballistic missiles. Of only 2 got off the ground. Obviously, they've got issues because they've been around. These are Soviet weapons. At least ours are a little bit newer. Not much, mind you. In all fairness, I don't know if I was going to fare any better. There has been failures on our side as well. Not as many, but still. I mean, these weapons have been sitting around for 30, 40, 50 years. You don't know what's going to happen when you hit the button. It might just go bloop, not do anything. It might blow up on a pad. You just don't know until it's just something we shouldn't be relying on. At least George Bush decided to develop what do you call it, the planet killer. 200 kilotons. Yeah, basically it's a hemisphere killer is what it is. It pretty much ripped the hemisphere off the top of the planet. You Aussies might survive, but the rest of us would be melted. I don't know why we need weapons like that. Sure destruction. I guess it is just sure destruction, isn't it? See, that's what scares me. What does Putin have in his arsenal that we don't know about? What do you think he's got? Sneaky hidden weapons.
He's got some nasty chemical weapons. I know that. I can't really talk about them, but he's got some nasty, things there. They still have, tactical nukes. We pretty much removed them from our arsenal years ago. So I think the Russians see it as just an, like an escalation, like staircase, basically. Whereas we see it's kind of more of an analog view of the world, where it's a continuous line of escalation, where we see it as digital, right? It's either no nukes or nukes, right?
Yeah, and real nukes or no nukes, yeah.
And that's kind of it's not. I mean, it's not necessarily a problem. It's safer for the planet to be that way, but we can also escalate much faster than they can, right?
Yeah,
we go to 0 to 1 in half a second. So I don't think this will result in any nuclear exchange, although the Russians have been playing it pretty fast and loose. So they flew 2 Sukhoi 24 aircraft over the Swedish island of Gotland, and they were said to be carrying nuclear weapons on board.
Yeah, and that's the reason they joined NATO.
I mean, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well,
super
I remember when I got the phone call, he said, "Joe, a Scandinavian country's joining NATO. What the fuck is going on?" He says, "World War III starting." I said, "What are you talking about?" I turn on TV and sure, I'm like, "If you're dumb enough to fly a nuke over the top," see, that's one of the things I don't understand about Putin here. He's bitching about NATO. All he did was make NATO wake up. Now, NATO was snoozing on overdrive, just cruising along, not even thinking about Russia as a threat anymore. We were more worried about China, and even China we weren't really worried about, because China wants to be rich like the United States. So nuclear war is not conducive to being rich. So we weren't really thinking about this, and then here comes Putin, going to wake up the whole planet. Now all of Europe's flipped out. They're spending more money on NATO. NATO's deploying troops along the borders now, which we haven't done since the Cold War. At one time we had 300,000 troops in Germany. Now we're talking about putting them back there. I'm like, man, come on. I mean, I think last I heard we were down like 50,000 over there. So that was a big drawdown. But it looks like they're going to put them back now. And we're talking about deploying troops in other places, in Poland and other countries. Before America knows, we're going to have 1 million troops deployed again. It's a huge army, because you remember this, ladies and gentlemen, when we deploy 1 million, we have to keep 1 million at home. So that means we have to double the size of our military every time we do this. So at one point, our military was huge. It was spread all over 3 to 5 million, and it finally got under control after the Iraq wars and downsized it because we didn't really think there were any threats other than hotspots. But now, Putin's going to change that and make us have to escalate again. And it's just a waste of our money. We could be spending on something else. I'm with Elon. I'm ready to go to Mars, man. Let's stop trying to blow shit up on Earth. Let's go to Mars. I don't know if you heard Elon say this. This was great, though. Ladies and gentlemen, Elon Musk kind of reminds me of one of the James Bond movies, Moonraker. The guy who went up in space was going to wipe out the Earth because he wanted to make a perfect thing. So he wants to go there and establish his own colony with his own rules. Okay, that's fine. I can understand that. Then he's talking about establishing several colonies with their own rules under Elon Musk and developing weapon systems that can deploy to deter the United States and Russia from coming there without permission. I was like, wait a minute. Dictator woke up. What the hell's going on here? Things like that bother me, because Elon's the kind of person that can pull this off. Yeah, it's amazing that one man can pull this off, but this guy can actually pull it off. And if he's Bezos or what's his name on the same side with him, ain't no stopping these guys. I said this when I first started doing radio 25 years ago. I used to preach this. If you ever want to see the space race really take off, you ever want to see us really make progress in space, privatize it. We've privatized it, and it's booming all over the place. It makes the Russians, and Chinese, and Americans look like they're going backwards at how fast the rate of technology is growing here. I mean, come on, Elon built a bunch of SpaceX shuttles and just gave them to NASA, and that's why I'm building them on. I'm going back to building my rocket to go to Mars and the moon. So, and I've got a bunch of reusable craft that they can both use the rockets and the capsules, which NASA can never seem to pull off quite right without blowing something up. And here we are, this man wanting to go. Maybe he knows what's coming. Maybe he knows Russia can't be trusted. Maybe he doesn't want to live on a planet that glows. I'm just saying, people. Right now with China, I don't see it's hard because nuking the Ukraine is like nuking Russia anyway, because any fallout from the Ukraine is going to fall out in Russia because of trade wars. Same problem the United States and China has. We can't nuke each other because, in case all y'all forget this, every so often our country gets covered in this red dust that comes from where? China. We share the same jet stream and the same wind. So if they nuke us, they're nuking themselves. If we nuke them, we're nuking ourselves. Russia's a little bit higher, won't be as bad for them, but for us and China, it's a direct trade one. You can't nuke one without nuking the other. So if you decide you're going to destroy the United States, you just decide you're going to destroy yourself. Just has to be. And if both countries nuke each other, the amount of radiation circling the globe at this time in the northern hemisphere will pretty much just wipe everything out. Now, you people in the southern hemisphere might have vision of the winds change, and the only thing I'm going to have to worry about is the convection currents carrying radiation through the wall and downtown. You might be able to survive that. The rest of us know, sorry, we're going to be a big glowing mass on the top of the planet. And who wants to live, look at it from Xi Jinping and Putin's side. Who wants to live in an underground base until they die? We got a big, beautiful blue planet. I know Putin's got kids. I know two of his daughters he's really into. The one who's a neuroscientist, she's running some big lab over there. He don't want her living there. He wants her out in the pub, enjoying her life and showing, hey, look what my kids can do. He doesn't want to live, even though he's crazy now. I have noticed he's gotten a little, it was scary when Trump came out and said he was crazy. I was like, wait a minute, what do you mean Trump, he's a little crazy? No, he's kind of a little crazy before I could talk to the guy. And he is weird. A lot of people said you'll notice when he has his cabinet together, there'll be like 7 sitting at this end together. And he has Putin way down on the other end of the table. And I'm sure it's a COVID thing, but people saying he's becoming patched, unreasonable, and not willing to talk. And this is coming from his own oligarchs, some of them that have now put bounties out on Putin. There's currently now $11 million to take Putin out, put out by 3 of his so-called buddies. I'm sure if he gets his hands in them, they're dead too, by the way. So that's another thing. Risking pits and putting off as an individual is dangerous. I mean, he's killed people over the years.
Yeah, polonium and Novichok and dioxin. Likes to use.
Well, they said he was in on the Cuban. When the Cuban used the what the hell they used against
the sickness, like the strange
sickness. They were using. I forget, it wasn't microwaves. It was some type of wave they were using. And it's something like a microwave. Damn, so long ago.
Yeah, a microwave would do something like that.
Yeah, so locally, oh God, people, I've seen microwave do horrible things. I've seen a guy. Quick story: I was working. U.S. Navy is on. It's still in tech school, by the way. I just finished up Special Forces. I was in tech school in Millington, Tennessee, of all places. And I was working in the flight control center. We were updating the radar systems. 2 were on, 2 were off. So they get this button on the side and that flashes let you know it's on. You don't want to open up a panel when it's on because it'll crisp you. I mean, it's a serious amount of microwaves going through here. This isn't like it's just serious. So we're all working. I was open on the other side. I just shut down the unit. I was taking it apart and I was putting the new transmitter, whatever the hell they call it. And I just got through putting it in. And I seen your boy pull the panel. I said, dude, is it off? And he just heard him start screaming. He just cooked his whole side in under 30 seconds. Cooked it. He was dead. I mean, he was just dead. And he dropped. It was basically, and I don't even want to tell you what it smelled like. It was horrible. But, it was. And meanwhile, the panel was now off, and the machine was so it's bouncing microwaves all in this building. It actually burnt a hole through the side of the damn building to get out. It was crazy. And finally, I managed to relay it to a main switch. And I just cut the whole power off the whole tower, which is extremely dangerous because we had aircraft in flight. So they had to bring up these old two-way two-way radios. We had to get in touch with them to let them know that they were in circle mode until further notice, or were being pushed into another airport. I got a accommodation that would have to still feel like shit to that. And it's like he said, you got a big old rib in the whole 9 yards. I said, you can keep it. The dude died. I don't need no accommodation for somebody dying. It aggravated the shit out of me. It should have been, it was one of the things that just shouldn't have happened. It should have just never happened. And this guy wasn't even a rookie. I mean, he was actually one of the instructors.
He just screwed up.
He got lazy. He wasn't paying attention. He just wasn't paying attention. Because, you always, before you, because the light's flashing, so you push the button in, so it turns off the light. They're not even supposed to unlock until you push the button in and the light goes off. And because there's several ways to turn it off, but when you're doing it where there's a hard switch that cuts the whole unit off. I don't know if he thought he hit it or he didn't hit it, or maybe the light was not working or something. But it was instant. I mean, it was just instantaneous. And just weird. I watched one burn a hole through the side of a conning tower on the USS Nimitz. Idiot guy playing with it. I said, dude, is that thing off? He said, yeah, it's off. I said, dude, are you sure it's off? He said, yeah. I said, dude, why don't you double check? And I still remember the lieutenant commanders in the bridge, because the captain was, I don't know where he was, and the first officer wasn't there because we were just sitting. And I still remember, I said, man, you better make sure that stuff, that thing gets to bouncing around here, it's going to wreck some serious equipment. We're going to all get in deep shit. And I still remember the lieutenant. He said, what is that smell? I'm like, what is that smell? And then you hear the guy, he's cursing in 5 different ways. All of a sudden, you see daylight coming from underneath the equipment. It actually went melted through this. And you got to remember, this thing's reinforced to take bullets and explosions and shit. I was like, oh, I'm not telling the captain. I said, I'm not on duty, and screw y'all. Well, I wasn't in charge on duty, so I still remember this poor lieutenant commander. He says, man, my first day on the bridge, I'm going to get fired. I'm going to the break. I was like,
did he get fired?
No, but he got a lot of shit over it. We all had to go see. We all had to go to captain's, man. I still remember. He said, Joe, what's going on here? He said, you've been on my boat for a while. I said, I had nothing to do with it, sir. I said, I asked 30 times, is it off? Is it off? Is it off? Is it off? I said, he outranked me. What can I say? He's like, yeah, not anymore. He doesn't. I got promoted to get demoted. It was like, okay, man. It's just shit that happens. I mean, what happens is it gets intense when you're on this. Same thing for these guys over in the Ukraine right now. These Russian guys didn't want to fight. You could see it in their face. They thought they were on maneuvers. They had no idea they were going to kill people. And it's hard to kill someone you ain't never killed anybody before. That's what makes the U.S. so dangerous. We've got 50 years of trained killers right now, and pilots. We've been fighting, for the last 50 years. So we're dangerous. But no, the rest of the world ain't like that. Russia hasn't. When's the last time Russia did anything? Well, we'll say Syria, but that was a joke. Afghanistan was the last time they were really involved in anything. They got their asses handed to them over that, thanks to over-the-shoulder rocket launches.
Yeah, which were sending the same things.
Yeah, so we're doing the same. That's the Ukraine, and that's another thing. It doesn't look like Russia could, even if they could take the Ukraine, it doesn't look like they could hold it. I don't know if they've got the people to hold it. I mean, what's Russia, about 180 million people now, and probably only 40 or 50 million of them are fighting age.
No, they have 144 million, and that's down. That's down from 148 million in 1992.
That's not good. They're going down, and I mean they're a big, huge country too. And last I heard, they're older than their age. Over 60 age was almost 50% of the country. So I don't know, man. I mean, how do you go to war with a country like that? Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing too. If you look at the age group that's pre-prime military age, it's shrinking.
Yeah.
So this is the last time they're going to be able to do anything, and they're going to burn through this generation. Then after that, they're not going to. They could have a demographic collapse. So this is the last. This is the last chance that Putin had to do anything like this. But after this, they're done.
Well, he can go borrow 300-400 million Chinese now. What the hell? What's 3-4? I'm sure Xi Jinping will have. Look, dude, I give you 300-400 million just to get them out of my country, man. I'll loan them down with no expectations of getting them back, Putin. You keep them, whoever survives.
Yeah, actually, you raise a point that I haven't even thought about. Like that's a potential point of leverage of China over Russia, whereas the Chinese say, "Hey, look, we might be able to get you out of this bind, but it's going to cost you." And then,
Yeah.
we might see the same, like the reverse thing we saw in Korea with 250,000 Chinese soldiers that show up overnight and, surprise the Ukrainians. That said, the Chinese actually had a pretty good relationship with Ukraine. There was a lot of trade between those two countries.
Yeah, that's what I
So
heard.
I doubt they would get involved unless maybe we got involved.
Mm. Yeah, it's the only thing I'm worried about. Taiwan's is what's going to be the problem for China, and they won back then, but obviously they don't want back bad to start war because it's different than Ukraine. This kind of bites the Ukrainians, but Taiwan's more valuable to the world than the Ukrainians because of processors. So when
Mm-hmm.
you control 88% of all processors, well, yeah, you're way more valuable, and the world's just not going to let China have that technology. Excuse me, no. Why do you keep thinking we sail on the Agus cruises through the strait all the time? Just to tell you if you blow them up, I'm going to blow you up. And nobody has an official protection pact. Technically, the United States is an unofficial protection pact with Taiwan. No one has an official one. I heard the other day, several world leaders speaking in Europe about this, and they're like, "No, this is a no-no. Sorry, China, but we'll consider this a no-no. We have to get involved."
Yeah.
China don't have 4,000 nukes. China's got 400 nukes, and a lot of them are garbage nukes. So we're not so much worried about those getting shot down. Unfortunately, when you have 4,000 nukes you put in the air, you're not going to shoot them all down. The United States can come close these days if all 6 of its missile defense shield is active. But I never know. It changes from president to president. We work on it, we close it. We start it, we close it. We open it, we close it. We close it, we open it. I don't know what kind of shit we got anywhere right now. I know when Reagan put it in institute, it was supposed to be a 3-tier missile defense shield backed by a 3-tier laser defense shield. One of them was supposed to be the airplane that flies around shooting down. Last I heard, we had that pretty down pat, not complete, but really shooting to shoot down several missiles an hour. Not what they wanted it to. We were also putting one in space, and we have a ground-based laser. And then we're supposed to have the Patriot system, which just goes up and flies into them. We're supposed to have another that blows up pellets around and destroys them. We got another one that's a low yield tactical, probably a kiloton. Not maybe a half a kiloton. Something that can take out a missile right as it starts to open in Malta warhead. We can take them all at one time. So that's all supposed to be there. If that's true, then really the United States is pretty much protected from a missile for the most part. But the rest of the world isn't. And it'd be time. I think we could treat China's missiles. But I don't know just many of them. Last I had, China was up around 458 or something, but I think Russia's still sitting at 3,775 with another 3,000 warheads probably laying around, not on missiles. Same thing the U.S. has done. We got around 4,000. We probably got around 4,000 laying in the warehouse that hasn't been destroyed yet. But they're not actually on missiles, but it's still different for us. We know that our submarines, all 18 of them that carry nukes, those nukes we know work for a fact. We also know they're multiple warheads, and we know one submarine can produce slave rates to Russia. So we don't have to even depend on all the others. As a matter of fact, I read a story just this morning about this couple that live about 5 miles from a missile silo in Missouri, and they were talking about that one time there was 10,000 of them there. Now there's one active missile for every 100 empty holes in the ground. So we still have them. It's not as much. We still have the ones in Tennessee that I ran into, but I think we would probably use our subs, make it faster, cleaner, quicker, and less chance anybody shooting anything down. Bam, thank you, man. But I know we got one that carries 18 warheads at 30 kilotons of warhead. That's a lot of nuke. Kenny Fight says that's a lot of nuke. 30 kilotons is not the biggest we have by any means, but you're dropping 18, that's just a lot. That's going to cover a 20, 30-mile area. It's going to devastate everything. Cities, buildings, people, plants. It's just, and we still have a neutron bomb, which for some reason we don't like talking about. We developed it, and then we said, "Oh no, it didn't work." And then we tested it, and then it did work, and then I'm not going to develop it anymore. And then Baby Bush decided to redevelop it, and that was the last I'd heard.
Yeah, it's also. I thought they declared it. Yeah, because it destroys, it kills all living things, but doesn't.
So people,
doesn't
what
damage
Sean
the
and I are
property.
talking about is a nuke that, especially if the electronics are off, It will devastate plants and animals. It will leave the buildings and the electronics and the vehicles all intact. So within 2 years, actually less than 2 years, you can roll in. And remember, since all the plants are dead, it's not going to be any vegetation or anything. You can roll in 2 years and start replanting. All you have to do is bring bacteria for the soil. And it should have been declared inhumane because it's all it's designed to kill us, nothing else. It's so that it's like if we decided we wanted to use these against China, we could just go in and take over Beijing and Hong Kong and all the rest of their cities. And it's just something about this weapon that's just. I'm hoping that it got put back on the shelf because for a long time they couldn't get it to work, and then they got it to work, and then they got it to work in a low yield capacity. So that they could just like hit one city, such as Beijing, and kill everything in Beijing, but really nothing else around it. And then you just roll in and take the city over. I don't know. Those kind of weapons scare the crap out of me. They scare me more than what Russia's supposedly 150 million kiloton, 150 kiloton nuclear got, which is pretty much enough to wipe out London. I mean, not London, England. One nuke, boom! Where'd England go? Oh shit! Sorry about that. It was overkill there, Boris. But what do you think about the European leaders? I mean, they go back and forth so much. I don't even know what to think about them. So Angela's now retired, but I hear her talking all the time now.
Oh, she's terrible. I mean, she's the one who got him into this mess, right? Like she's the one who wanted to decommission all their nuclear reactors, and by doing it, it was fairly obvious 10 years ago that she would be beholden to Russia with their natural gas pipelines and things like that. And what happened? Well, she's beholden to, or Germany's beholden to the natural gas pipelines, which is why like they appear to be the only barrier to blocking sales, to shutting down sales, because it would devastate them. That's why it would devastate their economy.
And I remember when Trump was bitching his butt off about this. Why are you buying fuel from our enemy? What is wrong with you? And she's also one of the 2 million Muslims in Scandinavian countries. Y'all notice, ladies and gentlemen, for almost 70 years, the Scandinavian countries only had liberal leaders. Angela Merkel led in 2 million Muslims. Their rate went up 1,400%, and guess what? They all have conservative leaders now. Yeah. That speaks volumes. And most of Europe just switched over because we're all for bringing people into our country. America is built on immigrants. I'm not going to hate. I prefer to come here legal, but still, I'm not going to hate because almost everybody here is descendant of an immigrant. But unless you're Native American, I guess then you might say you're not. But for the rest of us, we're descendant of immigrants. So I'm all for immigrants, but why do we always have to take all the bad ones? Why can't we take some good ones from time to time? Maybe like when we want to go to college and things like that. I mean, it's always seems like we got to take everything that's bad. And why don't we do a little bit better job of going through people coming into our country? I mean, obviously, there's some bad people. There's a lot of good people that get in. I know I met a lot of them. I someone worked for my company, but the thing of it is, we let in a lot of bad ones. There's no reason for it. It's like when they start moving people around in the middle of the night. So I'm in New York, I'm doing doing an interview with Blasio, right? I pull in the airport. It's 1:30 a.m. I get off the plane. There's like 20 airplanes out there with just tons of immigrants coming off. I'm going in the middle of the night. So I thought, not seeing things. The next morning, I read New York Times. Guess what? It's in the Times of all places because they're so liberal. It's in there scary. And they start talking about what the hell's going on. Then I find out 20 other states happening. So I come home. I'm in New Orleans. I went to go see my doctor, blood work, just routine. There's a line of Hispanics around the building. Down. That's what's going on. She said these people getting tested for COVID. They're illegals that were brought in on buses the other night from Texas. I'm like, what? She said about 8,000 of them. I'm like, so why do we have to move around at night? If there's nothing wrong and everything we're doing is an up and up, why do we have to move people around at night? So, I just don't understand that.
It's politically unpopular. So these just politicians. Like that's the way they operate. They don't do anything above board.
Yeah, but it should be legal. I mean, I don't understand why nobody goes to jail first off for illegal immigration, since this does belong. This is a Congress's pointed problem here, and we get so certain things bother me now. If you go back to Reagan and Clinton, and before them, presidents didn't destroy each other when they took office. Okay, so even though Reagan took over after Carter, he didn't go back and reverse everything Carter did. Carter didn't go back and reverse everything. Well, neither did Clinton. Clinton used a lot of what Reagan did to his advantage to help boost the economy and get us out of debt. If he was smart, he played off the existing president. All right, that's how it should work. Okay, now after him, it stopped. Well, after Baby Bush, it stopped.
Mm-hmm.
So now when we get a president in, first thing he does is basically goes back and vetoes every bill the other president did. And then we start from scratch. And now, and then Trump did it to Obama. Of course, Biden did it to Trump, and so on and so forth. And then Obama did it to Bush. So for the last 4 or 5 presidents, this has been our theme. Well, nothing gets accomplished when we do this, ladies and gentlemen. Obviously, the United States was oil independent, and the economy was in great shape before who took over. So I understand that we want to become a green country, but not at the cost of everybody in the country. I mean, think about what you're doing here. And then remember, every electric car on the road today gets its power from coal. So is it really a green car? Yes, you need to ask you that question. Currently, right now, it's a fact. You don't even have to look it up for yourself. Currently, to make one electric car is equivalent to 5 gas-powered vehicles. One, you got to get the lithium from Afghanistan through strip mining. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, that's so far down the green thing. It's not even funny. Then it's going to be shipped over to Japan, then shipped over to Taiwan, then it's shipped to the United States, and then it's parts assembled here. By the time the thing gets here, it's used up so much green gas in our country that it's nowhere close to a green vehicle. Elon Musk was the first one to admit to that. He said, yes, it's great for our country now. He said, but not until we're either on all nuclear power, all solar power, or all wind power. He said, until then, this is no better than any gas vehicle on the road because it's getting its power from coal or natural gas. Doesn't make it green, people. And it's just sad that we lie to ourselves like this. I don't know, so we feel better. Let's try the truth for a change. Oh, I don't think the truth's going to work anymore in this country, though.
Well, even like nuclear power, like it's an obvious clean solution, but people are after Fukushima are terrified of it. But it's one of the cleanest forms, and it's baseload power, whereas solar and wind are intermittent, so you can't guarantee it, right? You can't have your grid going down.
I don't know, there's lots of ways. I mean, we got Yucca Mountain now, so. All right, guys. I got some friends that work at different facilities around the country. Well, the WIP facility is where all the medical waste and stuff like that is stored, and there's no weapon grade waste there at all, or not even reactor waste. That's all stored at Yucca Mountain. Yucca Mountain's got all kind of signs around it, and they're even done in weird pictographs and stuff in case, like 10,000 years from now, we don't speak the same language. It says "Danger, do not open." So right now, that's where we're keeping it. And 10 to 15,000 years, most of the waste in there will be inert. Now, in all fairness, we could shoot it into the sun. Somebody said, why don't we shoot it to the moon? I said, because you ever seen that TV series 1999? It's not going to the moon, man. I don't care what anybody says, it ain't going to the moon. But besides, we might want to live on the moon in the near future. So, but they could shoot it into the sun. It wouldn't even hurt it any. You could just shoot nuclear waste, and it would dissolve long before it even got into the sun. It would just be gone. And the amount of radiation at the foot of the sun anyways, it's not even going to be noticeable by anything we sent there. So there is ways you can get rid of it. I know it's a little dangerous shooting it on a rocket in space. I kind of agree with that myself. But maybe a space elevator might be a little different way of getting it up there. But meanwhile, we do have the Yucca Mountain facility, which can store all of our waste from our weapons and our reactors for the next 10,000 years easily. And the thing is great. There's no leak. There's no problems with anything leaking. I know people work there. I got a friend of mine in trouble at the WIP facility. That stuff. They had a big meeting going on, right? And they wanted the big open areas where they stored the waste. So they're all sitting there. So I cropped in a UFO behind them and put it online. Oh man, it caused all kind of shit. It caused all kind of shit. People thought, of course, they thought the picture was good because it looked really good, and the way the craft fit into the room really nice. I'm thinking, how did you think that thing got down there? I mean, really, the hallway is not that wide. It was just hilariously funny. But it went over, and I actually remember, Joe, can you take that down? She said, my boss is losing his mind over this. I said, wait, it's got to know it's fake. He said, it doesn't matter if it's fake. Everyone in the world thinks it's real. I was like, I'll take it down. It was just one of them stupid things. I was bored one afternoon, did it. What can I say? I was in my 30s. I was losing my mind. What's that, Christopher? Yeah, well, he does. Putin does have low-yield nukes, probably a kiloton. He might even have half a kiloton. He's got suitcase nukes. I don't honestly remember anymore what they were. Somebody said between a half a kiloton and 2 kilotons. It's low yield nuke, and you don't even need to deploy that on a missile. You can just roll that in there and toss it in there somewhere. Put a detonator on it.
Or put it on a shell.
Yeah, they owned a big chunk of the Soviet era arsenal, but they gave it to Russia when they became a country. I'm pretty sure that was the agreement. Give us our nukes or no deal. I'm pretty sure that was the deal. You mean no? Putin wants. If it was up to Putin, he'd bring back the old Soviet Union. He just don't know how to do it. Mainly countries like Poland are not coming back. Kazakhstan, they're not coming back. They're like, no, sorry, we're part of NATO now. We're not going to run nothing again. You can forget it. And as Sean and I were talking about earlier, he doesn't have the military to get involved against a U.S. or even a UN-led war. He just doesn't have that kind of ability anymore. He wants to think he does, and he wants the world to think he does, but judging from what's going on right now, he doesn't. Short of using nukes, he's just a third world dictator at this point, which they said for the old Soviet Union, but still, that's where he is. I'm going to piss him off, I'll tell you that much, though. Not if I lived as close as y'all do. Well, if you're in the UK or anywhere in Europe or anywhere in the Scandinavian world, anywhere in the Asian world, you're within minutes of a strike. See, the US, at least he's got to go up and down, so it's 30 minutes. But for y'all, it's more like 12 minutes or 4 minutes or 6 minutes, depending on where you are. From the time it launches to the time it makes contact. So it doesn't give you much response time. And yes, we have jets that we can deploy and shoot some of them down, but not always. John wants to know if you've got your own underground shelter.
No, I'm not rich.
Yes, it costs money, people. Nobody costs money. Even shitty ones cost money. I remember.
And even then, right, you need like an expensive filtering, like air filtration system. You need to have, it would need to be secret. Otherwise, people would kind of raid it, try to get inside it. You'd have to have food for an extended period of time, right? If you're in a nuclear war, like the half-life of uranium's 2.5 million years, right? Mm-hmm. So like you're going to live the rest of your life in that bomb shelter. Like you're not going to come out. I mean, like the remainder of the human species would kind of have to live out the rest of its existence in those shelters. So it's not really like you're solving any problem. It's probably best to just die off in the first explosions.
Unless you get to manage to get one of the big shelters, you're just I couldn't see living in a 60 by 60 underground shelter. Just lose my mind after about 6 weeks, so if that long. Yeah. It just wouldn't be worth it. I probably wouldn't want to run into the radiation. You'll be watching me start to glow more and more as I'm running down the highway because I don't know. There's a lot of big facilities. The problem is people like us are not going to get invited. I did bust it one time. We posted the map up on. That was because of who did that? It was FEMA that blew it. Yeah, FEMA was doing a TV show, and they had a FEMA map up with underground facilities. And what they were talking about, they had green, blue, and red pins on this. The green ones were disconnected or discontinued. This was a show about the one that was underneath the hotel in D.C. That's what this was about. So we're watching it, and they're talking about how the facility's not good. They show you all these green buttons all over this big U.S. map and some of our allies, which there was a lot. There's like 50, 80 of them. And then they showed these blue ones, which were actually in construction, and they showed the red ones, which were actually active. There must have been 200, 250 red pins up there. Easy. All over the place. So we had, I was just tell you how long ago this was. I had on a VHS, so I stopped the VHS and took a picture of it. And I posted it to the internet. And man, I got kind of flack for that. But it showed you roughly where all of them were. It's just in perspective. Right where I live in New Orleans, in a really rich neighborhood. So there used to be a government facility. So for the politicians, it was out on the lakefront. So after Katrina, it got flooded a couple of miles under the thing, and got wiped out. So this really wealthy neighborhood decided to build on top of it and around it. So then they went in and cleaned it out, and everybody got their own escape route from the top of the thing now. So this is all, you can't tell it's there. There's no way no one say the generators are all hidden in buildings and stuff like that. So unless you know it's there, you don't know, and people just can go in there now. Anything that goes on, they got their own facility. Nuke goes on, they got their own facility. They just better hope Katrina don't come along while they get nuked. Because from what I understand, the whole thing was full of water. Maybe they got better doors on it now, but and better breathing facilities. But at one time the water in the city was supposed to be deep. So if your exhaust pipes weren't above that, your generators were off, your air was off. You may have suffocated before the water subsided. So, but anyway, they're all over our country. Most of them are military control, but like the one I've told this story 100 times. I was me and two of my buddies when I was getting drunk in Millington, Tennessee, doing tech school. And we climbed this fence. We were shit-faced. We were shit-faced. And we've been drinking all night out in the clubs and just getting in general mischief. And we had a bottle of booze with us. We climbed this fence, and we fell up against this big grassy green hill. The hill's 10, 12 feet tall, probably 40 feet around. So we're just laying there, we're talking, passing by, and look at this car. It's a beautiful night. And all of a sudden you start to see light. The damn thing starts to move like this, just turning. Of course, we were drunk. We thought, oh, come on, man, we're all just drunk. We're just seeing things. And then you see the daylight. It's like light, like, and look, and there's like 6, 7 SPs standing in front of me. I'm like, oh, shit, what do we do? The guy said, stand up, handcuffed all of us. And then we got to the ladder, and he had to unhandcuff us. We went down this ladder, I don't know, 200, 300 feet. Up to the bottom. When you get to the bottom of the ground, there's a road going northwest, south, and east. The road itself on each side is probably 300 to 350 feet. We'll just say 400 feet across in each one. And you couldn't see the end. I have no idea where it ended. We were just looking at these things going, what the hell? And the guy goes, and some guy shows up with a golf cart and drives us to the cafeteria and gets us all a hamburger while we're waiting for the captain to talk to us. The captain comes and talks. He said, you have any idea where you are? Just sit on the military base. He starts laughing. This evil laughing. I'm like, oh, shit. He said, I'll just tell you, top secret military facilities, and you're not supposed to be here. He didn't see the big signs outside the bunk. I said, no, sir, we were drunk. By now, we're all pretty sober, too, because we were in shit. And he says, have you seen anything? I said, I've seen 8 guys, a cook, a hamburger, you, and a golf cart. He started laughing. He said, all right, you can go. He said, now, he made a sign an agreement saying we'll never speak about it. And, of course, we didn't until like 30 years. And as best I can tell, it was a huge facility. It was definitely a silo base, but there was more than that there. Just because of how wide everything was, you could tell they were moving aircraft around there. They were moving all kinds of stuff around down there. How far it went, I couldn't tell you. I know generally I can see about 10 miles in a distance, so it definitely went that far. Any more than that I could take because it got dark. It looked like the lights came and on as things were moving around, like the lights were sensitive that way. But I bet you it's still there today. I bet you we fly did it in, so it's still there today. And it's a big ass facility underneath that big ass Navy base. It's in Millington, Tennessee, and the Navy station up there. The place is huge, by the way. I wouldn't even know what to tell y'all guys. I would tell you don't go get nosy because it's deep inside the base. We were on the base when we went into this fence inside of the base. They would rent you. You go horseback riding and take a boat out or a trailer out or whatever, go out camping. There's lots of ground out there if you do that kind of stuff. And we just figured this was another place we roamed into it. They never give me a name. I asked, I still remember to take a message. If I tell you a name, you're not getting out of here. I said, okay, never mind. I shut up. I said, I kind of got your point after that. I still remember we see our captain the next day. And he looked at all three. He's like, where the fuck? I said, they told us. Actually, I looked at him and they told us we would never get out. And he just started laughing. He was in one of them kind of places, huh? He said, all I can tell you is I was told to you not to talk about it. I said, don't talk about it and go back to school. And that was the end of that. And I went back to class and we talked about it, together for a while. We didn't talk about it with anybody else for a long, long time. I have no idea what it was. All I can tell you is I guarantee there's some nukes there. Whatever else was there. It was a cafeteria that looked like it probably handled 400 or 500 people easy. So I have no idea what was down there. And it was weird because I do remember one time seeing one of the rolls for the base. And it looked like there's about 3 times as many people on the roll that could actually live on this base, even though it's a huge base. There wasn't that many dorms and that many houses on it. So I never did understand that. So it must be people that are flying active duty somewhere that just are, charged out of the base. Because the Navy does that sometimes. They'll make you a home base, but you may be somewhere else. I don't know what it was, guys. All I can tell you is don't go walk on a damn base. And if you're listening to us right now and you're on this base in Millington, Tennessee, please don't go walk. But whatever you do, don't mention my name, okay? Just don't. Say Stephen Bissett told you, yeah. Yeah, tell him Stephen Bissett told you. That works, yeah. Oh, no, tell him Richard Dole told you. Yeah, there you go. I'm sorry, I'm just teasing, Steve. I'm just teasing. I'm not getting anybody in trouble. I was just teasing. What's that, Kirby? Oh, Kirby's asking both of us if we take the money to go to the Ukraine. You mean $3,000 a day? What you talking about? I'm not thinking so. Hey, Sean, you going over there for $3,000? That's not bad money, man. Get shot at him,
If you go over there, you're going over there to die. Like, look, like U.S. like Army, Marine Corps, we're spoiled, and we're spoiled in 2 ways. Number one, we never have to look up because we always have air superiority, right? The Air Force always makes sure, and Navy always make sure we have air superiority. And number two, we have the best logistics in the world, right? So, and this is also high intensity conflict. It's different than kind of Afghanistan and Iraq. It's just, you got to get used to constant shelling, and the Russian way of war is a lot more brutal. Now, if we went over there as part of the U.S. military, it's a lot easier because the Air Force would systematically destroy strategic Russian targets, high value targets, HVTs, and then would work its way down to tactical targets, right? So, you go over there, you're going over there to die.
There'd be nothing flying in skies, and it would be nothing, no anti-aircraft, anything on the ground. Our planes are great for hunting and stuff. Well, I usually find we just usually send in like X-117 or something to get rid of it. Well, they're stealth, that's why. All right, I agree. The F-22 and the F-35 are both stealth now. I'm not going to argue with you about tactical stuff. They have both stealth. Actually, I'm pretty sure we just delivered our last F-35 just recently. That is the end of the run of those aircraft. We're on the new Gen 6 type craft. I haven't seen it yet, so I don't know. Well, if we got in a war, of course we'd make more, but you know why we went for F-22 F-35, right, guys? It's because F-22 is actually better aircraft. It's just more dangerous. They called it the Widowmaker in the early days, killing pilots like good pilots too. The plane just had issues. It was having a hard time learning. All aircraft fly or wire by stick by wire. There's no direct controls anymore. There's nothing, it's the hydraulic systems. See, the whole airplane action, when you pull the lever back, you pull the cable back that pulls some things that made the hydraulics work. These are electronic. When you pull it back, it reacts to it. And then the F-22 was the first time we tried flying without joysticks. It was the first time we tried a new thing where you put the thing on your head and then let you fly the plane. It worked. It killed a couple pilots, but it worked. The F-35 actually has it now, I think, only like 5 aircraft. It's not the aircraft, it's the pilot that has the issues. I heard a pilot speak about it about 2 years ago. He said, I still am grabbing joystick even though it's not there. He said, I know I'm flying and I can get on the instrument and the plane's flying way faster and it responds way faster. He said, but I'm still looking for that joystick. So he said, I'm still that 1 or 2 second delay. It's weird. He said, because he learned how to fly with a sock. Most helicopter pilots had one eye covered so they can see all their instrumentation. It's not an easy thing to learn how to do. Your brain is used to have 2 eyes looking at the same thing. They're separated like this. So. And the ones that fly by brain power are badass, and if we ever get it right, they ain't no Air Force in the world will compete with us. Well, they're doing not just our planes want to be able to fly drones. I forgot the guy's name. I remember when he invented the mass drone thing. So what are we going to use that for? And said, really? What do you mean what are we going to use that for? We can fly 100 drones at a time. What do you think we're going to use it for? I don't know. We have technology now that we don't even talk about it. Stuff. You can make drones by the thousands, these small ones, and send them in the sky. You didn't have the weapons, but they just run into shit. That's what. Oh, y'all didn't hear that, did some of y'all might. So Russia told Elon Musk to get starting out from the Ukraine, and of course Elon laughed. He said, "We'll just shoot him down." He said, "I'm pretty sure I can build satellites faster than you can build missiles and put them in space." And if he said, "Keep shooting them down, I'll just start crashing my satellites into your satellites and bringing them down. Your 100 kilo satellites, your STS satellites, your satellites that we use surveillance." He said, "We'll just start knocking them out of the sky with our own satellites." He said, "I'll just keep put up another 2,000, another 2,000, pretty soon 15,000, then I'll dominate the sky. None of your satellites will be able to fly US or China." So this is one guy. This is the United States, people. This is one mad scientist that's saying, "I will kick your ass." And you know he can do it. That's the scary part. He can mass produce them in a second. He's not going to mass produce them in China or Taiwan. He's going to mass produce them right here in the United States. So can you imagine 10,000 drones at a time swarm? It don't matter how many guns you got. I mean, something's going to hit something for sure. So China will be able to do this because China's got a good development system and a good. The only problem China's got is its quality control is not as good as the United States. So if where we build 10 items, one will fail. They'll build 10 items, 7 will fail. It's just a difference. You don't have to take my word for it. You ever bought anything from China? 50-50 if it's going to work when you get it or not. So they're not because they're a communist country and they're just not. They don't have to have the quality control we do. We have all these laws. And people go to jail here for doing stuff like that. They still have kid labor over there. Yeah, it's just one of the things, guys. They'll catch up one day, maybe. You know, if you ever watch all good sci-fi from the future, it's always the United States and China, and both languages being spoken. Somehow they made friends. Somewhere probably after a war or something. Don't tell them what happened. They pretty much divvied up the world between them and out in space doing whatever it is. And you'll hear Michael on Serenity. He'll be cursing, and all of a sudden he starts cursing in Chinese. It just continues right out of American and Chinese and right back into America. It just flows. He's been doing it all of his life. It's not just that's a lot of sci-fi series like that now. And in one aspect, it's true.
Well, in the '90s, they thought it was going to be Japanese, right?
Yes, they did. And you know, don't ever let the Japanese people. I'm just saying. Remember, they conquered China not once but twice. And the second time they conquered China by trading bowls of rice for guns. And that's exactly what would happen this time because China is not a self-sufficient country. They don't produce enough food to feed their population, enough food or fuel for that matter. Mm-hmm. So if we boycott them and shut them down, they're pretty much screwed. And Russia helped to an extent, at least with fuel, they could. Food, they'd have a hard time with, but it would be hard. It would be a hard nation. I don't think Xi Jinping wants to live like that. Xi Jinping went to college over there, but he spent a lot of time in the United States after college. He took some special courses, and he did a lot of traveling in our country. And he just, in a way, he wants to be America, but he wants to be the emperor of America, is what he wants. He likes our system, except for he thinks we should have one leader and not switching leaders all the time because it causes us problems. And in some ways, he's right. We're not ever endorse communism in our country, so he likes the United States. He likes the money. He likes the people. He likes the way we live. That's what he wants. Don't forget that 300 million Chinese now live like Americans. They're kind of like our Europeans, however you want to say it. And in another 100 years, 700 million will live like us, which will give them the buying power. Only the person who will compete with them will be India, unless we just go on a breeding page in this country. So, we can do it. I mean, we got more women than they do. Sean says he wants about 15 kids, 16 kids, maybe 17. You want some kids, man? Look, do it for the country, man. That's all I can tell you. So all the rest of y'all listening tonight, take a shot and do it for 10 kids. Hey, when I was growing up, my friends had 10 kids. Not my mom. She would have had a heart attack. She had 2 kids. So.
Oh, look, it's not hard for me. You have to convince my wife to do that.
Wife, 10 kids, wife. She'll be like, this guy. Get the hell off this hand with this guy right now. You're banned from ever going back in this show again. 10 kids. It's, well, if you have 10 kids, I mean, it's not like it's a plague or anything. So just figure like this. If the Z-Geners, 1/3 of Z-Geners would have 10 kids, we would jump up 600 million in no time at all. And if their children did the same thing, we'd be right up in China's butt. And America's actually got a different kind of country, so we would support a lot of it. You know, I'm with you. I don't want to people in the country. It's just like, I find it crowded enough as it is. I couldn't
Yep.
even imagine living like Beijing or Mexico City, for that matter, where there's 22 million people. I mean, come on. There's so many people in Mexico City as there is in the state of New York. Mm-hmm. What do you mean? You mean where I live? Am I a strategic target? I don't know. Sean, you a strategic target? I don't know. I used to know in the old days. New Orleans isn't exactly. If you did cities because it's a port, yes, it would be a strategic target. That'd be like third wave.
Yeah,
Now,
I guess it depends on what's there, right? Like,
now where I live on the Gulf Coast is different. We have 4 military bases here and an NASA base. They would nuke to some bitch place in a matter of a minute. Ooh, I wouldn't even know what happened. I'd see a bright light and I'd be in heaven or wherever I'm going. Still, that would
yeah,
be the end of that.
they would go after the missile bases first, right?
Yeah.
So like Iowa and Wyoming and Colorado, like
Heartland would be glowing.
yeah, Nebraska, like they'd be glowing.
What's that, Dean? You know what? I have heard that some of the solar panel farms and some of the windmill farms are on top of bases. That's probably true in Texas. That's probably true. A lot of wasted territory. As long as it's gaps in between, I mean, and those windows are pretty far apart, so you could easily put sideload between them. We don't need as many. It's only 4,000. Yeah, back what was it? I think the height we were like 15 and 16,000. But now we're somewhere around 3,600, 3,700. That's a lot still. I'm not, you know. Well, Reagan started it, and other presidents followed suit, and slowly but surely, as Russia became a democracy or whatever you want to call it these days, we started with nukes. What we should have done is got with the UN and demanded that no other country was allowed to develop them. Like China and Pakistan, we should have just went in and took them away from them. Iran, it just should have been something that was allowed. For safety of the planet, for that matter. Because eventually, if you wouldn't let the rest of the world have them, eventually the United States and Russia would eventually phase them out. All but a handful of them. Yeah, just enough to blow each other's capitals up. And that would have been a different world, but no. Now we're going to be building them again. Watch what happens. Mark my words, the United States instantly started building nukes. We already had some program that had started under, I think it was Big Bush, but and Obama didn't get rid of it. Something Trump did either. Upgrading our nuclear warheads. Bigger warheads, better missiles, more accurate, faster. Yeah, and then now this just shows us we need them, which I don't personally think we do, but you can bet the politicians and their buddies are going to be spending money on nukes next. And from what I heard just yesterday, we're talking about converting 4 of our submarines back to carry nuclear weapons, our cruise missile submarines. We have a few cruise missile submarines. And by the way, our cruise missiles can carry nukes, just in case y'all didn't know that. Not huge ones, but they can carry like 10 kilotons and stuff like that, which is enough to take out like Dubai or any city in the Middle East. Yeah. You mean Tehran? I don't know what I don't even know what to think about Iran half the time. Well, I got a lot of friends in Iran. And we actually have about 90,000 people listen to the station in Tehran. What's funny about it is the people don't seem to be American haters. The government does. I don't know. Have you ever been? I have never been to the Middle East. I don't know. I don't want to go to the Middle East. Sean, you want to go to the Middle East? Sean said he's ready. He's packing up. He's going to get the wife, and they're going to have 10 kids in the Middle East.
I'd rather go to Ukraine, to be honest.
I'm thinking I'm with you on this one. I'm thinking I might rather go to Ukraine myself. Michelle wants to know, what do you think the long-term outcome, or let me rephrase that. She wants to know what you think the long-term outcome will be for the Ukraine and for Russia on this. And is there any hope that the Ukraine can come out of this mostly intact?
It depends on how you define mostly intact.
No.
So, I mean, they have 3 weeks to resist this Russian onslaught before the May 9th Victory Day parade. And then I think what'll most likely happen is it'll be one of the classic things Russia likes to do, which is have a frozen conflict where they'll kind of have forces there and there'll be skirmishes here and there and it'll be neither peace nor war. But I think the good news is it's not going to manifest itself as what it looked like at the very beginning, which was a complete overthrow of the Ukrainian government. I think it's just going to settle into an uneasy, um, you know, situation where there's neither peace nor war, and Ukraine will end up being a buffer state that will be more likely to side with NATO than anybody else. But I think Russia's got bigger problems now. They've kind of demonstrated to the world, like Putin can't turn back because if he does, the only memory people will have is of an impotent and ineffective Russia, like Russian military, and he has to dispel that as soon as possible because otherwise he'll have problems in the North Caucasus. People rebelling, Chechens, Georgians, people in Dagestan, like in that whole area, people are going to start to push back against Russian power because the perception now is that the Russian military is not necessarily weak, but just incompetent.
Yes, I
You might
agree.
have China in the Far East start, pushing a little bit in the in those regions. Villages might move north, and you have some of these excuses to move in and take more territory. But Putin, like he can't really turn back. He still has to recover some of that lost reputation that the Russian military suffered in this, what looks like a debacle right now. But in terms of Russian influence in Ukraine, they're done for they're done for 3 generations. Ukrainians, even Russian-speaking Ukrainians, can't stand them.
And I noticed yesterday I'd seen there's over 100,000 Russians have already left Russia, and
Yeah,
I'm like, man, you can't be having that going on. And then even amongst Russian state media, guys, just an image that there's the ship that just sunk. Um, Even Russian state media is amongst itself now, and I don't know how that's going to play out for Putin. I mean, I know they have to agree with what the statement is. Putin, of course, Putin said a dozen times this isn't a war. This is basically what we used to call Vietnam, a police action, and we all know how that ended.
yep.
Uh, yeah, there it is, burning away. When I heard the report on this, they said it was a magazine that blew up, and that's what initially caused the damage. And I have seen, I've personally seen, I've heard magazines blowing up on ships before, but usually it's caused by something.
Well, yeah, and even that, like neither explanation made Russia look good,
No,
right?
where's their air defense? I mean, you got 2 missiles coming in. Well, I don't know. It was harpoons of water defense, isn't it? It's more like a torpedo. I have to check the answer. Either a torpedo type missile or an air type missile, but either way, a flagship should have had the ability to stop it. That
Yeah.
that that makes me think, Lord, should we eat y'all alive? Um, I just don't even know what to think about that. I mean, it's a flagship. It's the most advanced ship in the fleet, and it got taken out by some Ukrainians with a I don't even know what to think about that. I just don't. I'm sorry, people. Oh, wait, we can see a redhead. She makes me furious. Let me turn her off. She's become state media. She's going to work for NBC now. See, that shouldn't be allowed. See, because of her job, she shouldn't be allowed to work for NBC because that's just basically state media. She's
Yep.
just basically another arm of the state media. No, I'm not talking about her. She's weird. I looked up her and her husband. She's actually thin, not pretty, but she used to be a little chunky thing. Her husband still is, and she's not what she says she is to be. It's I notice more and more in politics. A lot of times, what you're listening to is not actually what you're getting. Hey, I don't make politics up, guys. Recently, at an interview with like Rich Nato, turned out she's not quite as crazy liberal as she sounds on television. Maybe that's why she's leaving. She's a gun generator. Goes shooting her gun with her wife every Sunday and takes her boat out every Sunday and goes fishing. Doesn't sound like liberal to me. No, it's what I'm saying. There's some other stuff she said. It just doesn't sound all liberally to me. I don't know what to tell you. It happens. No, I'm with Sean. I don't. Unless don't give Putin a way to save face, and yes, he may be forced to use something. I think he personally be better off using a tactical nuke than chemical weapons. I think the world would hate him less. They hate him either way. But if you use chemical, have y'all ever seen? I've seen what chemical weapons do to people. One of the first things we learned in the Navy and Special Forces is what can happen to you if you're exposed to this, that, or the other thing. Some stuff, by the way, I still haven't heard the name of in public yet. That's scary, isn't it? I think he'd be better off with a nuke. If he had these ones, because something like mustard gas or some of them or anthrax or something, they're horrible. They kill in a miserable kind of way. At least with a nuke, you're dead. Unless it's radiation, you're dead pretty quick. I'm hoping they don't use it. I'm hoping he gets what he wants and he goes home. What do you mean? Do you mean Europe let him keep a Black Sea port? Maybe not, but he's going to keep southern part no matter what. So he'll probably renegotiate so that they can have a port to get in and out of it. That's the reason he went into Georgia primarily originally. It's because he needed a Black Sea port. When the Ukraine took over, they kept all the ports. That was his biggest bitch. We don't have a port on the Black Sea. We need a port on the Black Sea. Well, now he's going to have two if he keeps this one. So, I don't know if Europe will let him keep it. They may keep the sanctions on, make him give it back. He's going to keep territory no matter what because he has to save face.
Yep.
You got to remember, he has to save face in here. We all agree what he did is shitty and wrong, but if he can't save face here, this is going to escalate. And so we need to give him that. We don't need a president going around telling him what kind of murderer he is. He already knows that. Again, he has to save face. It's no different from our world leaders. In this case, if he doesn't save face, he's going to probably do something drastic. Let's put it this way. If he's already knows for sure he's going to be out and everybody's going to hate him and everybody's going to be trying to kill him and he's just screwed his regime up for good, then he might do something worse.
Mm-hmm.
If he thinks he can maintain power, which he's not going to, this is going to hurt his power over Russia pretty good. So it's maybe his last term in office, maybe. I already said that as last two, so let's not count him out until he's out. But he makes me nervous. Not as nervous as other people, but he makes me nervous. What do you mean? I'm more. Is that for me? Oh, okay. That's for Sean. So, how do you say it? Selma's writing in from Battle Creek, Michigan. Hello from Battle Creek, Michigan. I've never had anybody write in from there before. They want to know if Biden scares you more than Putin does.
If Biden what?
Scares you more than Putin does. He's got to pause and think about it. That's a good right after that.
I mean, politicians, I mean, I hate to say this out loud, but politicians in this country really don't matter. Like, and I know that the term deep state is thrown around. Like it's a bad thing, but we do have a deep state. By deep state, I mean a permanent federal bureaucracy of people who are experienced and have been in positions of authority for, a decade or more. And those are people who kind of make sure that there's a continuity between two different administrations. And I have confidence in those people. In terms of the latest politician here and there, not a lot of confidence. Those guys are just marking time. They're just there, just figureheads. The people who are recommending the decisions we made. Now they make decisions, but those decisions are highly sanitized and weighed, and generally the best, the best options are presented to them with the appropriate risks are explained. So I'm confident that our government, whoever's running it, will make the right choices. I mean, so far right now, he's actually, aside from the infrastructure bill, which basically caused inflation, Other than that, he's in dealing with Russia. He's actually been remarkably calm at a time when Putin has been extremely reckless. We already talked about the Sukhoi 24 aircraft with
Mm-hmm.
nuclear missiles on board flying over the Swedish Gotland, that little island in the Baltic Sea. Like that's extraordinarily reckless. We're not doing things like that, but what we are doing, in supplying javelins and 155 millimeter howitzers and these switchblade autonomous suicide bombing drones, Stinger missiles. Like we are extracting through Ukrainian proxies a tremendous cost on the Russian military, and we're not, and we're probably providing or sharing a ton of intelligence and things like that are helping the Ukrainians target the Russian invading forces. So I actually think he's been remarkably calm. The real test is if Putin does something crazy, like use a tactical nuke, which I personally think that's even worse than using chemical weapons, because chemical weapons, have already used in Syria. They demonstrated their capacity to use it, and you can counter that with a conventional response. The key question, though, is if somebody uses a tac nuke and we don't have or utilize tac nukes in our arsenal, what's our response have to be? And the tough thing about all this is I don't know the answer to that.
It's a tough question. Maybe there might be something the Navy can use. Other than that, I don't think the Air Force even keeps anything low yield anymore, as far as I know. And I know we're supposed to have some for our cruise missiles. We're supposed to have some tactical missiles. They have to be fairly low yield. What is fairly low yield? 5 kiloton, 10 kiloton, 25 kiloton. I don't know. In the old days, I said 2 kiloton. That was only 2 kiloton was actually good for those. The last I heard, he had, well, dose the rest. I don't know. I know we still got something that goes on the tips, but what the hell they are kind of worries me. There, I don't think they're going to be something. 1 kiloton sounds like a lot, people, and it is really a lot in the grand scheme of nukes. It's a baby nuke. I mean, it's 2 miles around, explosion, maybe a mile. If that, it's probably not. It's probably about a half mile actually. It's probably got a half-mile containing explosion with a 3-mile core of radiation around it. It'll just depend on where the wind's going, but it's such a low yield that it dissipates quickly. But kind of with Sean, I don't know if we have any of them around anymore. Last I heard, we had done away with them. It doesn't mean we did totally. Maybe the Navy kept a few on its cruise missiles, but I wouldn't count on it. I would count on a minimum of 10 kiloton, which is basically declaring war. 10 kilotons don't do some serious damages, but it would say as Sean said, it would show we were serious. And be like, whoa, wait a minute, the U.S. was a little pissed off here. Maybe we should think about what our next response is going to be. And then that's the thing. If you launch it from a Navy sub, you don't know where it's going to come from, when it's going to come. And I know China and Russia tries to try subs all the time, but they're not near as good at it as we are. I remember it used to be so weird. So you'd be in an inventory cruising along, and there'd be ships all around. So all of a sudden, one of the tenders would come in like we were going to get tended, right? No, we weren't getting tended. Freaking submarine that's been on to carry for a week would pop up in between us and the tender, and they would tend it. But as far as anybody watching from anywhere else, it looked like we were getting tended. And we would get product brought on board, but most of it was going to submarines. Them submarine captains are insane. And wolf packs believe in knowing where our Russian China subs are all the time. They do not like losing a submarine. Last I had heard, and it's been 15 years, we kept every nuclear sub under surveillance at all times. So for any reason, we could take them out instantly. It's not supposed to be something we even let go. And the U.S. got slick. We used to have all these underwater bases. Y'all know this, did y'all? We had all these little listening facilities all around the world that were just little mini underwater bases. Well, the Navy decided that they didn't want to pay for them anymore, so they gave them to the whale watchers. But part of the deal is for the whale watchers, if any subs come by, they have to report it immediately. Actually, I think our system's tied into theirs now. And they're still there. They're still around today, and they're all over underneath the water, all over the place. Last I heard, there was 90 of them total. and that's not including our subs. So there's listening stations all over the planet. It's like we want to know where everything is every minute, every day. Because if a war comes, we don't want any surprises. We just want to take them out and move on. We don't want anything parking off the coast of DC and letting loose, 16 or 20 missiles. That's not something we want to see. So we try to keep track of all of them. I would say today, more than likely, we probably keep 90-95% of them in arms reach at all time. Well, in case y'all didn't know, the Navy, Russians like crazy items, which every so often they'll turn around and come back on themselves to make sure nothing's behind them. Well, one was in the Gulf of Mexico, and the Navy didn't know how to get out of the Gulf of Mexico. So it said it did a crazy eye. We just ran into the damn thing. So that way they had the knowledge in the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah, we busted them outright. Everybody swore it was an accident. Everybody knows exactly what happened. The U.S. Navy just plowed into the damn thing. Because the way it hit it didn't sink it. They wanted to just kind of tore the side off on one of the trail fins. Just kind of tore the side on the Russian sub, and it ran aground. And of course, guess what? We proved the Russians were in the Gulf of Mexico, which is what the whole exercise was about. But you see, even then we didn't use weapons. We still got their ass out of the way. This tells you how crazy the Navy sub captains are. They're not to be trifled. That's all I can tell you. Anybody who lives under the water 6 months of every year is not to be trifled. And sometimes they're down longer than that. So just leave them guys alone. Let them do their thing, and hope they don't come looking for you later on. If y'all didn't notice this, you can go look at all the old sub bases around the world from World War II. You will be amazed at how many they are. Even more amazed at how many are still active today. Yes, because you can have the Nazis were fierce about this. They would tunnel in sometimes 15 miles and just try to spin underneath. You know where you were getting to them. You wouldn't bomb them. Maybe shut the door and hope it's not a back door. But the Germans were fierce for that kind of stuff. And keep their U-boats safe. The U-boats were wreaking havoc on everybody. One more question. We got to get out of here. Who's got the last question? I'll wait. Hold on, let me move the screen where I can actually see it. Oh, hey, Wade, where are you from, Wade? Where are you from? Oh, New York City. Well, hey, how you doing today, New York City? How's it going? What you got for us? He Wade's asking if there's going to be a big war, who do you think really started? China or India, something like that? And he doesn't obviously he doesn't think Russia's going to start it. So what do you think?
No, me? I think, well, as part of China's long-term plan, they want to their goal is to have Taiwan under control by 2049.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe they think they can do it slowly like they did Hong Kong, right? Where they just wait, and then once the generation changes over, it'll just fall to them peacefully. I mean, I also doubt that would happen, but
yeah, Taiwan nobody wants to go. Hong Kong didn't want to go back, but they were kind of screwed because I don't know why Britain just said, you know what, we're keeping Hong Kong. I'm sorry, we're not giving it back. You have to pay us. You know what I'd have done? China said, okay, we'll give it back. We have to give us all of this back first, all this money, all this stuff we want a refund, and then we'll give it back. Because it was stupid on our part. I mean, all kind of technology was in Hong Kong, just handed over to the Chinese. It's kind of like when we left Afghanistan, left all that equipment over there. Why do we do things? That's just ignorant. There was no reason. We weren't forced to leave Afghanistan. I never did understand it at all. That never made any sense to me. It's like we wanted the Taliban to have a bunch of U.S. weapons. I mean, I don't know why else we did it. I mean, in other wars, we destroyed it. We didn't leave it behind. We didn't even destroy this stuff. And they're running around in our uniforms, which is even worse.
Yeah, Afghanistan was a political, not a military failure, because a lot of the stupidity was directed by the military side, like limiting the number of troops on the ground to 1,500, right? Which is why they had to give up Bagram Air Force Base, which was, air base, which was the most logical place. That's why we were flying people out of Kabul, the Kabul airfield. So it's just that one was a political failure.
Oh yeah. Sometimes I just wonder how we let things slide like this. Unfortunately, we don't have any personal control. Guys, girls, we got to realize it was 7 o'clock. I got another show coming up in a minute. They're going to run me out here. Coming up next is the Horsefly Chronicles with Julia and Bill Syracuse. They'll be on in about 5 or 6 minutes. I'm going to switch over to you in a minute. Sean, give me your address where you can find you at, and email, stuff like that.
Yeah, so you can find my website at seanpatrickhazlett.com. I also have a YouTube channel called Through a Glass Darkly with Sean. Definitely encourage you to look through that. Lots of content on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Also on Twitter, I'm Sean P. Hazlett. And then you can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and MeWe if you want to, look that far.
Free Twitter. Go Elon. Twitter, baby. Free Twitter. So every time I get to 10,000, they throw me off on Twitter. So every time I get to 10,000 on YouTube, they throw me off. They hate me. It's gotten personal now. I don't know what it is. It's gotten personal. Everyone else leaves us alone. Every time we get going making money on YouTube, they throw us off. And we were doing really well on Twitter, and then all of a sudden, Twitter went through whatever Twitter's been going through. Off we went. We got to 100,000. They'd always say, "Well, we're spamming." I said, "It's the radio station archives." I said, "There's the same archives every week. Why you say we're spamming? Oh, we're spamming." I got tired of arguing with them, and I finally just said, "Okay, we'll just keep a page until." Well, don't forget, we're also on LinkedIn, people, so you can find us over at LinkedIn. If you're nice at LinkedIn, use it. I've lost track of all the social media pages we had last time. It's like 28 or something ridiculous amount. Oh, yes, it is. For that, I will be posting all week long. I will be posting pictures of myself in the crowd from Writers of the Future, so go ahead and check it out. There's a lot of articles up there. I'm posting a lot of articles. Everybody who was there, all the judges and all the guests were interviewed at least twice by myself, by John, and some other people. So be sure to go check them out. And I didn't know Sean then. You know what? In the morning we'll talk about when he won Writers of the Future. How's that? We'll do an hour show. How's that? Yeah, calm down, people. Damn, sorry, you're getting bitched out here because you ain't been on for Writers of the Future. Because he just told you he's in book 28, man. You know how long book 28 was? That's like 10 years ago. Yes, I didn't want to talk about a story. What was the name of the story that you won with?
Adremelech, probably.
See, I haven't seen it. So I don't know what he's talking about. Yeah, I have to read them. I read the books because I want to know what the hell I'm talking about when I talk about them. Actually, there's some good stories in them books, people. The anthology's got some good. All you can tell you to buy them and read them, or be here at Christmas. I give away a lot of them at Christmas. Yes, no, I'm not giving away any of my as my wife calls them, my coffee table. But I'm getting none of it. You're not getting none of the autograph ones either. I give away some Battlefield Earths, some Mission Earths, 30, 60, 37, and 38. There you go. But anyway, we got to go, guys, because I got to get somebody else on the air. Sean, thanks for being on. You're always a wonderful guest. I had a great time talking to you. Sorry we got a little late started. No, I wanted to get a little bit deeper in the war, but we got sidetracked a couple times.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, Joe.
You see, I'm blaming the audience. This is their fault. I'm blaming all guys. Yes, you evil audience. But anyway, we got to go. Remember to hang out for the Horsefly Chronicles coming up next with Sean and Julia. They're great guests. They host a lot of fun to listen to. Followed by The Missing Piece with Trisha Moe. She comes on after them. She's our resident witch. So y'all can be sure to check out her as well. I heard Angel Rock is off tonight because she's out of sick, so there will be an archive playing in her place. So anyway, y'all know what's coming on for the rest of the night. Hang out, be still, have fun. Oh, and don't forget, I just did Coast to Coast on Tuesday, so be sure to go catch the Coast to Coast episode where I was talking about the blood type. So I'll be back pretty soon as well, talking about some other things. Well, I took a fiesta from him for a while, and I called him, so I wanted to come on. Yes, you can just call me on if you've been on the podcast. Anyway, we got to go. Thanks again for tuning in to United Public Radio on the Centralist. Coming up next is Horsefly Chronicles. Good night, everybody, and stay tuned.